Hey everybody, my name is John DePietro, and I want to take this moment to thank you for joining us on this edition of My Life with Kenny Rogers. But here's the best part. It's not about my life with Kenny Rogers. It's about the life of our special guest, Lynn Hammann, who spent 23 years behind the stage, actually behind curtains or behind some plexiglass as a drummer for Kenny Rogers, actually 23 and a half years. And we're going to get to Lynn in just a minute, but first I want to tell you that this is one of several videos that we're doing with people who've been part of Kenny Rogers' life in the music business, in the theater business, in the live entertainment business, whatever you want to call it. And if you want to get every one of these videos that we're doing, all you have to do is down at the bottom right-hand side of your screen, there's a little red button that says subscribe. Hit that button, and then a bell comes on. Hit the bell, and then every time we do one of these new events, you will be one of the first to be notified. Remember, this is available only here. It's not sold in stores, and it's not as seen on TV. So with that part of the business being said, let's welcome our special guest for this event, Mr. Lynn Hammann. Lynn, welcome to a show about you.
Well, thank you, John. I'm honored, and thank you for inviting me to do this.
You know, it's always fun to talk to people who were in the group that aren't currently in, you know, the last segment of the group, because they've had a chance to kind of reflect on their years with Kenny, and we're going to ask you those questions in this segment here. But first I want to ask you to tell us how you met the Kenny people and what you did prior to that, leading up to 1988 when you joined Kenny as the drummer.
Okay. Well, I'm from a small town, Illinois, Gillespie, Illinois. I played music around that area, eventually went out to Los Angeles with a couple of friends of mine that we were in bands with. And along the line, I drummer. And she opened for Kenny around 1981 for a whole year. So we went on tour with him. He was playing the big arenas, and we went to South Africa with him and all through Canada and all over the U.S. So I got to know the band fairly well. And then in the mid-'80s, I got a job with Frankie Valli in the Four Seasons. And it just so happens that Kenny was out on a Kenny Dolly tour, and Dolly couldn't make a couple of the dates. So Frankie was hired to play those 2 or 3 dates, I think, with him. So I was reacquainted with the band. I hadn't seen them since my Susan Anton days.
Yeah. So you knew them from another life.
I knew them from another life. And then somewhere down the road, I got a call, and the bass player was Susan, had gotten a call from Steve Glassmeyer, Kenny's keyboard player, one of the originals, and they were auditioning drummers, and Tom recommended me. Thank you, Tom. And so they flew me to Valley Forge, Pennsylvania to audition.
Yep.
You've been to Valley Forge, you know it?
Yeah, and I think that building is torn down now at a mall, right?
It was torn down before I left Kenny, yeah. But we played a lot of shows there, and so that's where I auditioned for the job. I flew home the next day, and that evening I got a phone call, and it was Edgar Struble, and I said, "Hi, Edgar," and he says, "Hi, do you want to join the band?" And that was it. I said, "Of course."
Okay, so I got 2 questions to ask in that. Okay, number one, when you were with Frankie Valli, did you have to sing any of the high notes, Lynn?
No, I couldn't have done it, John.
You couldn't have done it. Even with tight pants?
Even with tight pants, I couldn't have done it, no.
Okay, and number 2, that recommendation that Tom made for you, you sure it wasn't just to get rid of you and have you get out of their band?
I can't deny that, no. It was probably that was probably a big reason.
Okay. So now you join Kenny. You're with Edgar and Steve. And I don't know if you saw the segment we did with Edgar before.
Yeah.
Edgar's got gray hair now. We used to joke Edgar had a bigger afro.
Of course, yeah.
Than the guy you replaced, Bobby Daniels.
Right. That's right. They were they had, they were all puffed out, and Edgar's was bigger. You're right.
Yeah, yeah. We were even talking with Frank Farrell yesterday, and Frank said that when he was in a band prior to coming to work with Kenny, he had a big one and hair down to his hair halfway down his back. So
I'd seen the pictures with the long hair before, yeah, but we all had that. Now I don't have any, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So you don't have to worry about haircuts.
No.
So you joined Kenny and did 23 years.
Yeah.
What was the funnest place you ever played at, Lynn?
Oh boy. I would say the shows that were really unique, because in the United States you play a lot of theaters and arenas, and sometimes they kind of look the same. Some are stand out more than others, but mainly maybe say shows overseas where I knew I was never going to go there again. We went to Romania right after the fall of the Soviet Union, and Kenny was invited to do a festival where they were celebrating their freedom of the arts and things. And so we played at midnight on the town square in Brasov, Romania, and that was fun. Some of the 4th of July, the Capitol 4th on the 4th of July at the Washington D.C. That was fun. Those kind of something that was out of the ordinary was always fun for me.
Yeah, interesting. Because like you say, people don't realize, but when you play those big arenas, because of the time frame that you do, I mean, you show up at the loading dock, you come in and you're under the concrete and you see all the scaffolding and basketball hoops and hockey nets and everything back there. You eat in a room that sometimes has those portable walls and pipe and drape, and you eat off of Sterno cans and, et cetera. Then you go out into the arena and it's already dark.
Mm-hmm.
You do the show. You can't see anything because the lights are on you.
Right.
And then you leave and get back in the bus and go to the next city and do the same thing. And they say, well, how was Green Bay? Well, I don't know. Number one, the Packers weren't playing.
Some of them would stick out. Like I think we played Boston Garden once, and those are iconic arenas, and those kind of things were kind of standard. But the newer ones, you're right, they were kind of cookie cutter, and once you're inside, one looked just like the other one for the most part.
Yeah, exactly. So life on the road, to the outsider, it's glamour, but the reality of it is, I mean, so I think Steve or Chuck told me that, we play for free, but they pay us to travel. Is that pretty much what it is?
That's a good way of looking at it. Yeah. There's a lot of travel, definitely. Mm-hmm. Almost by the time you put your travel days in and everything, it can add up to almost half a year, away from home. And you do that for that many years, and it's a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
But it is fun. It is fun to play the show. That's the highlight of the whole. That's the reason you do it. And of course, doing it for Kenny was, as good as it gets.
Yeah. Now, generally, maybe an hour and a half before the show, after you've eaten and before you go on stage, the music room was the place that everybody hung out.
Right.
And you had that fake drum set there, those little pads to practice with. Before you went on stage as a musician, as a performer, did you have to go into a zone, a mental zone that like pro athletes do?
No, my pre-show warm-up with the practice pad that you mentioned, I just did that to, get loose and, be as sharp as I could be to go out there and play. But you do it for so many years, that I wouldn't say I had to get in any specific frame of mind. If it was an out of the ordinary show, say a TV show or something really special, your mind is thinking differently, because there's other things going on around you besides the show. And you might think a little differently before the show about that. But most of it was routine, making sure we made Kenny happy, and that was our job, Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So many times you guys would be near the stage when the opening act was out there because of the way the the night was set up that they'd play, and then probably a 20-minute intermission, or sometimes, they would just grab the opening act gear out, like if it's in a casino, they want you, to get the show done, to get the people, into the machinery.
Out to gamble.
Slot machines and the gambling and that type of thing. Were there any opening acts that you can say that you admired and said, these guys really are special and they're going to make it?
Well, honestly, almost every one of them were excellent. They had excellent bands. Some of them went on to mega stardom. You know the story about Garth Brooks. He came out on one of our Christmas tours, and all these people, the Gatlins always had a great band. Sawyer Brown was they were a great band. To single one out would be tough, John, but I was always impressed with the musicians, and usually always great guys,
Did you talk shop with them?
Oh yeah. Drummers always, we got to talk drums.
They just hang around.
And it's mostly,
drummer, huh?
It's mostly, what kind of gear you using, oh, I like your cymbals, what size toms do you use, that kind of stuff. And we shared the same road life, basically. So there wasn't a whole lot of difference in that, but oh yeah, we would definitely talk. And, sometimes you didn't have that opportunity, but for the most part we did, and got to know some of the guys really well. And it was fantastic. Really enjoyed meeting all those people. Yeah.
So my question is this. You got to work with two acts, at least, that have had over 50-year careers. Mm-hmm. You did say Frankie Valli already. You did say that, right? Okay. So what put Frankie Valli and Kenny Rogers apart from the crowd that is, I hate to say one-hit wonders, but one-hit wonders or one album wonders, and then they become a trivia question.
Right.
What were the things, not just as necessarily the stars themselves, Kenny and Frankie, but their whole organization? What kind of stuck out in your mind with that?
Well, number one, I would have to say it's the sound of their voice. And they have great radio voices, what they call a radio voice. It's identifiable immediately. It's unlike most other voices you hear. Frankie had the high falsetto. Kenny had that smooth voice, but he had that growl, that every singer wants to have. And Frankie could, on those early records, he could put a little growl in there too. So their voice really stuck out on the radio, and I think that was their success. It appealed to the ears of the listener. And then they just had hit after hit after hit, both of them.
If you were listening to the radio, and as soon as you heard them, you knew right away who it was. You
didn't
have to wait until the song was over for the announcer to say, and that was Kenny Rogers. Exactly.
You can listen to those records today, and they sound great, and you can just tell that that's a unique voice, and you understand their success.
Yeah. So how about the way in which they interacted with their team?
Team meaning us or the whole organization?
The whole organization. But, because many times some of these guys that are on stage put on a great show, but they're absolute lunatics when they're off stage. I'm not going to mention a name, but I remember somebody telling me that so-and-so, was up on stage, he's great, but, on sound checks, he would fire band members during sound checks.
Yeah, I've heard those horror stories.
From that perspective. But what was it like, when you were off stage and the star was around?
Well, with Frankie, when we were out, a lot of times we would play weekend jobs or casinos. So we would fly to, say, Atlantic City or Vegas. We'd be in one place for a while. But then when we did a road tour with Frankie, we would ride the bus with him. It was the band and Frankie on the same bus. And we would talk about, what was going on in the world or music or whatever. And he was a he was Italian, so he had a really strong sense of family. When his mom was around, she'd bring pierogies for everywhere. Yeah, I mean,
ravioli.
Yeah, ravioli and
pierogies.
Not pierogies. Yeah.
Do not mix raviolis with pierogies.
I know, that's blasphemy.
Yes.
So he was very family oriented, and we got along great, and he did with the band. We had a lot of fun. Kenny was the ultimate in making you feel comfortable around him. Very kind, had really thoughtful, would never say anything, intentionally to hurt your feelings. Just that's the way it was, and he handled his organization, as many people have told you already. It was so well run that he put it in place that way. So he really he knew it was taken care of, from the crew, the lights, the sound, up to the band, everybody. He made sure everyone was comfortable, taken care of. He didn't like problems. He would rather, if there were any issues at all, he would always say, "You guys, whoever it was, work it out yourself." He didn't want to make a decision. It made him feel uncomfortable, but he had confidence in the people we hired that it would be taken care of, and it was.
Yeah. Hey, so talk about, I'm going to put you on the spot now. Talk about some of the crew members that you remember the most, and what you remember them for. Because you've been out, you've been out 8 years.
Yeah. When I first joined, it was Kenny had his nephews on board. Yeah. Lenny Rogers was my drum tech. He set up my drums. Paul Rogers took care of the backstage dressing room area, and they were a lot of fun. We had some wild people. I can't remember one guy that was hired on. He wasn't part of Kenny's crew, but he was hired on either through the sound company or lighting company. Anyway,
maybe a laser guy. Could he be a laser guy?
No, he helped. I think he helped page cables. He may have had something to do with the sound company. But anyway, okay. He was kind of a crazy guy. And his other life, he used to be shot out of cannons at a circus. Oh. So he was probably the most unique person we had. And then all of our crew were great. Frank Farrell, before he became our monitor engineer, he was, after Lenny, he set up the drums for me, and he's a drummer.
Okay.
And he actually filled in for me at times I couldn't make some gigs. Yeah. Okay.
Now, when I talked to Frankie, and I wrote it down here, right here, did you fall off a toilet?
Inadvertently, yes.
Here's what Frank said.
Well, here's what happened.
Lynn Hammann toilet. I wrote down, he said, make sure you ask Lynn about falling off a toilet.
Well, here's what happened. We were doing a Christmas show, and part of the tour of the Christmas show was playing at the Fox Theater in Detroit.
Yeah.
Beautiful old theater.
That's right, Detroit. That's
right. And the night before, after the show, Warren and I went to Kenny's room to talk about, I can't remember what they were talking about. Warren and Kenny were talking, maybe writing a song. They were writing a song. I went with them.
Was this part of Toy Shop or prior to
that?
No,
this was prior to Toy Shop.
Well before Toy Shop, okay.
Yeah, and so Kenny had some room service, and I don't know what it was, chicken fingers or something, and there's some he had left over. So he said, help yourself, guys, so I had a piece or two of that. Well, the next morning, I woke up sick as a dog. I went to the bathroom and sat down, and I blacked out. I passed out, and when I woke up, I was underneath the sink with my foot twisted, my right foot twisted under my left foot. And I actually had a hairline fracture of my right foot. And so they had called a doctor. They took me out on a stretcher, and Gene Golden said I looked like Hannibal Lecter. They were wheeling me through the hotel to go to the hospital. And then I had to fly home. I missed the rest of that tour till I healed up. So,
but as they say, the show must go on.
The show must go on. Yeah.
Yep. So effectively, you could say you did fall off a toilet.
Yeah, I don't know how many people can say that, John. So
But that's what Frank said. He said, make sure you ask Lynn about falling off a toilet.
I have to put that on my resume.
Right. Or the other thing you could say is you tripped over a chicken finger.
Yes, that doesn't sound as good.
That doesn't sound good. Well, fell over a toilet. So Frank, with his drumming, did he have a drumming background, or was it?
Yeah, Frank grew up playing in bands in Kansas City. And actually, I think Steve Turner, who's Dolly's drummer, may have filled in for me for the rest of that tour. Excellent drummer.
Yeah.
And but then after that, but Frank grew up playing drums and in bands, and then got into the sound business. And
well, you know what? It's always not. It's always nice that people in the band are multitaskers, because I know when Edgar was hired, Kenny wanted to know if he could play a certain instrument, which he couldn't, but he said he could.
Yeah.
And then they hired him. And when Warren was asked about, have you ever scored something or other? He said yes, but he hadn't. And but that's so everybody needs to be able to do a couple jobs, because as the show got smaller, everybody was doing a little bit more. It never got to the point where you were schlepping your own gear and setting your own drums up. But so how long were you out? A week or 2 weeks, or?
Well, that was winter. So say from December, by the time the new year came around and Kenny was ready to start up the new tour, I was ready to go. Yeah.
Was it food poisoning?
I couldn't play in a cast. It was food poisoning, they think. Yeah.
Which led to a cast.
Yeah.
That has got to be the weirdest medical combo that you could ever talk about there. So, ever miss any shows for any other reasons outside of family stuff?
Yeah, I had some back issues that every once in a while a disc would go out, hit a nerve, and my back would just lock up, and that would usually put me out for 10 days to 2 weeks. And Frank, those are the ones that Frank would sub. I mean, he knew the show inside and out. He was
right
on the side of the stage mixing us, and he knew every lick I played, and he knew every song. So he fit right in and did a great job. So he was invaluable in that sense.
Yeah. I'll have to put something when we put this together for broadcast. I'll have to put right around this time a little edit to see Frank Farrell, and you could hear his story at the same time. But you know what? Everybody that I talk to that, like you and Warren, just speak glowingly of the years with Kenny, and no regrets about leaving when you did, and certainly no regrets about the 20 plus years that you spent with them. You don't even see people in quote unquote regular jobs do that anymore. By regular jobs, I mean in a bank or insurance company or whatever. They move all the time, but the stability of Kenny's organization, Lynn, had to be out of the ordinary.
Well, for me, it most certainly was. I mean, when I came on board, he provided insurance for everyone and took care of us in our travel, and just great to work for. It was very tough for me to decide to leave. My orthopedic issues were getting worse, and it was becoming less fun to me to be on the road, all the traveling and stuff. Yeah. So there are a lot of couple of overseas tours coming up, and so I talked to my wife Brenda and said, I think I should, if we can swing this, might be a good time to leave. So, but I went to Kenny and told him, and the guy said, he listened. He said, well, just take 6 months off. Heck, take a year off and come back. He was that.
Oh, okay.
That was that. I just couldn't believe he offered that. And I was, of course, thanked him profusely, and it wouldn't have been fair for the band to go through that and get used to a new drummer. It definitely wouldn't be fair to the new drummer after that amount of time. But the fact that he offered that just says everything about him.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because people think, it's funny because guitar and piano, they're different from a drum because everything with a drum is based on friction,
right,
tension, and one thing hitting something else.
mm-hmm.
Whereas with a piano, it's a little bit different. So it probably does weigh on your body a little bit more without even realizing it.
Well, it did because I had other issues going on. If it weren't for those, I'd have stayed on to the very end.
I mean, the other issues have been drinking and drug addiction.
Of course, yeah. You've been talking to the band, haven't you?
Yeah. Exactly. So what would you say to young people that, aspiring musicians, because the life of a musician is more than just playing music on stage. There's so many other aspects of it, including being able to get along with 6 or 7 other people that do the same work as you and traveling with them, in the bus years.
Right.
What words of advice would you give to those people about being successful?
Well, number one, it's always going to come down to your ability to do the job, whichever instrument you chose, to take up, you have to do, that's your first priority. Not far behind that is your ability to get along with everybody, especially if you're on the road and you're confined on a bus with people and you're with them every day, morning, noon, and night.
Morning, noon, and night, right. Including sleeping.
Including sleeping. That's your second family. And so, so keep that in mind, and then always just never give up learning, practicing, because you never know when you're going to get a phone call or somebody's going to turn you on to something and to go try out for a group or whatever it is, at whatever level, doesn't matter. And that you're at least prepared as well as you can be prepared. That doesn't mean you're going to get the job, and it doesn't mean anything if you don't get it. But you have to feel satisfied that you went in there as prepared as you could be at that stage in your life and did it, and don't be afraid to do it either. Just go for it,
Go for it. That's the key to the whole thing. Go for it. Have that dream of being on stage with the lights and the sound and,
Well, even at a young age, those thoughts weren't even in my mind. I just was in bands and I enjoyed playing, dances and stuff. And the things that happened later were the farthest thing that I was thinking of,
So do the bass players still get the chicks?
You'll have to ask Chuck.
There was always that joke about whether the drummers or the bass players get the chicks.
No,
that's being so politically incorrect. You can't use that terminology anymore today. But
no, well, you've violated it twice already.
I did exactly. So Kenny's gone, but because of the timing when he passed during this COVID thing, there really was no ceremony. There was no funeral, right. No wake, no closure. Do you feel a little weird with the Kenny thing in that nobody ever had a chance for a hug at a ceremony to kind of put it to rest?
Yeah, it is. It is definitely out of the ordinary, no question about it. I've talked to everyone, after he passed away, and we talked about what a change he brought, affect all of our lives.
That's right.
Everybody's life, and how great he was to work for, and all that. But you spend so much time with them, it's almost like one of your family. You can, in your imagination, you can see them and hear them, and But yeah, the closure part is it was hard to think that you maybe wouldn't go down to the funeral and all that stuff, but that's the way it is. I know with Wanda and the boys and all Kenny's boys, and his family, it had to be tough on them too. I'm sure they had close friends and family that couldn't do it as well.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I mean, Randy's talked about getting the gang together again, and but the band is getting together. Let's talk about that for a second. The band is getting together again.
Right.
Kenny Rogers Band, to be out on the road with Don Gatlin.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know Don at all.
I know Don was in one of the opening acts for Kenny. Yeah.
what's your thoughts on that? Would you go see him?
Oh yeah, I'd go see him. Yeah.
With comps, or would you pay? No.
They probably make me pay, John.
I know. You probably have you must have an old all access badge that you've kept around somewhere, right?
Yeah, I could try to sneak in the back door with that.
Yeah.
No, I think it's great. Mike Zimmerman, the last drummer that replaced me, he's going to do the drums, and I think it's great. You know, there are a lot of acts around here that they have some outdoor festivals in summer, and there's, you know, Journey sound like bands, and Eagles sound like bands, and Beatles sound like. But this is Kenny's, some of Kenny's band members, you know, and they're just perpetuating the music. Don's a great singer, and I think it's a great idea. Yeah.
Great.
If they ever get back to work.
I know.
Who knows when that's going to be?
I know, that's the thing. So who knows? But Lynn, we want to thank you so much for spending time in your library there. We should tell people that's not a fake background. You actually do read books. And you were a big reader on tour anyway. You and Sisk always had books with you, I think.
I like to read. Well, you know, you had so much time during the day to kill. And even on the bus, if just because you travel overnight to the next city, you still may not be at that city. Right. Sometimes you don't get in until 12 o'clock 1 in the afternoon. And so it was nice to go in your bunk and read before you go to, to bed or during the day to kill some time. So I like to read a lot, John.
Great. Yeah. So Lynn, as I was saying, thank you so much for spending time with us. And folks, we'd like to again remind you that if you'd like to see all of these new segments as they become available, then all you have to do is down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen where it says subscribe, hit that subscribe button, and they'll be sent to you. And special thanks to our special guest, Lynn Hammann. And Lynn, let's go out in a blaze of glory.
Will do, John, and I can't thank you enough. I really appreciate it.
Have a great day, everybody.